Lonnie Zamora, who was a policeman, drove up in his patrol car, and from a short distance he saw two short humanoid beings, clearly not identifiably known human beings of that shape, pottering around underneath a craft. I'm pretty sure he said that it had tripod legs.
Of analysis they were doing to debunk things. Man, I'd love to have a guy like David Grusch sitting right there behind, whose job it was at NRO to look at stuff like that, who has a deep knowledge, came forward as a whistleblower, and was able to kind of, I hope, in that room, was able to bring everybody to brass tacks. Word on the wash, birdies tell me that it was awesome to have David Grusch in that room because he kicked some ass for UFO transparency.
Yeah, it would be great to be in that room, be a fly on the wall.
We always seem to be chasing. When we go after that latest new thing, we can forget what, in fact, is a very powerful and solid foundation that was built for many, many years and decades before we even had an internet, much less social media. So let's talk about crash retrievals, for instance. We have heard a lot about the possibility of crash retrievals, the possession of alien technology and biologics.
Welcome back, everybody. The sDm Files, episode 16. Trickle on in. Fire up your systems. Come find me, x.com/shotdownmine will do the thing. Everybody check out the links down in your breadbasket. We put them all down there, plus some extras as always. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, go do all the things, go do them right now. Here we go.
Considering today's validated Tic-Tac UAP sightings, wouldn't this be a good time to compare current Tic-Tac descriptions to respected Sheriff Lonnie Zamora's 1964 daylight New Mexico sighting of a landed object? The descriptions are uncannily similar, with the main exception being that Zamora's craft had a noisy thruster for propulsion during takeoff, suggesting that if it was one of ours, it was an earlier model. Project Blue Book was unable to debunk it and listed it as an unknown. Cordially, Oliver.
That's a great question. Yes, I'm fascinated with the Lonnie Zamora case as well. I've read practically everything there is to read and watch about Lonnie Zamora. I've watched all the interviews that he did. I find him highly credible as well. And it is interesting because the shape of that particular craft, as it was described, is consistent with the oval and or the Tic-Tac shape that we're talking about in relation to the goings-on at the range described by Jake Barber and other people. And indeed, the pilots of the jets that were flying over the west coast of the USA, Dave Fravor, other people involved in the interdictions between Tic-Tac craft and US military craft in 2004.
Ross Coulthart. Question and answer. Secret military tunnels. Dark side of the moon and more. Reality check. Ross fuckum Coulthart with his sidekick there. I don't know what her name is. They don't really seem to care. Here's some credits. Editorial producer Megan Origa. Segment producer Christine Jenkinson. So, I don't know. He probably calls her by her name. None of that really matters. Here's a little summary here. Making UAP videos and photos available to the public. Secret tunnels and bases under the Arizona desert. Is uranium being mined under Bradshaw Ranch? The dark side of the moon. Physical appearance of the Tic-Tac craft. Westfall, Australia incident in UAP space travel. My favorite part was his comments on the Tic-Tac. Ross has been doing a lot more bloviating lately. So he's been kind of showing his hand a little bit, which is, I guess, I don't know, it's probably on purpose. It's probably part of his, you know, his rollout of this whole thing that he's been doing for the last couple of years. So yeah, he's telling us what he thinks about the Tic-Tac, and you know, we're supposed to, he's kind of leveraging that he has insider knowledge because he's been interviewing all these people recently, because he switched to being like a UFO reporter guy. But before that, he was like a national security investigative. He was a national security investigative reporter. You know, reporting on Australian Five Eyes relationships, Australian relationships with USA and UK and etc. Talking about Pentagon and defense and secret projects. So he's got, you know, the credentials, right? And so it is interesting. He's saying basically when you compare the accounts of the most recent kind of Tic-Tac witnesses, like Commander Fravor, to the oldest accounts, and you know, he brings one up from the 50s. They're a little different, and he thinks that, you know, based on a whole bunch of things, but mainly in this episode, the pedo tubes that he points out, that Commander Fravor, who you know, I guess would be uniquely able to identify things like this, a pedo tube on an aircraft that's flying around at whatever speed. And so he reports, Commander Fravor reports seeing pedo tubes, which are airspeed measuring tubes. And that's kind of like a, you know, Ross says it's a uniquely human thing to put on an aircraft. And then he goes into, you know, talking to you about basically in the past, the original kind of sightings of the Tic-Tac did not have pedo tubes and would also have kind of like a tripod shaped landing gear, which the more modern versions that Commander Fravor encountered and reported don't have. But he talks about all this other stuff, you know, that we read off. The tunnels, basically he says, yeah, there's tunnels. He says they're all over the place. When you talk to intelligence community insiders about tunnels, you find out that there's, you know, bases and tunnels, probably just like everyone's been talking about for quite some time now, all over the United States, for, you know, continuity of government reasons, but also for all sorts of reasons, right? Even, I don't think it was him, but I think I saw George Knapp referring to Bradshaw Ranch as like the Skinwalker area. And so yeah, there's stuff going on underneath Skinwalker. So they talk about those kind of topics. I don't, you know, the uranium thing, I think again, he says like, sure, there's uranium, it's no big deal, everyone knows about uranium, and that people want it, and it's being mined in these places. These aren't even like actually like conspiracy theories at this point in time. That's what Ross is saying. The dark side of the moon. So he doesn't just talk about the dark side of the moon. He talks about kind of all the different crazy moon theories that everyone's mentioning. You know, it's hollow. They've been setting off explosives and listening to it on Apollo missions, and even some of the more recent missions when they landed on the moon, they were able to tell again. doesn't react seismically or audially the way that they expected to still. But they should still be expecting it to react weird, so they should be expecting that. Westfall, Australia incident, it's been gone over lots and lots of times. UAP space travel. I don't know about that. Maybe I didn't even listen to that part because they were saying goodbyes and whatever. So yeah, that's what you get from his questions and answers this week. I kind of focused in on the Tic-Tac portion because of the explanation that he was giving And we'll see in all the like Ross videos this week is he's doing a lot more explaining than he is reporting, even though he's not telling you who told him what, but he is doing a lot more explaining this week than usual. So super interesting.
This is Weaponized. I'm George Dapp, coming from the bunker here in Las Vegas. Jeremy, where are you hanging out?
Look, man, I'm just here for the alibi. Hearings from first-hand people, either touching craft or exposure on the inside directly.
Some of the higher-ups in Congress clearly do not want this to get traction.
AARO puts out something on X. It's a 17-minute clip of the jellyfish UAP, which, by the way, we told them where to go get, so you're welcome. And second of all, they're trying to put out 17 minutes to confuse what we did in our original reporting. If you go look on the Weaponized website, it was under the water for 17 minutes. The whole set of footage over the base and everything, it's almost an hour.
Well, putting it out at 3 minutes after our high noon Tuesday, which is always when we release our episodes, 3 minutes later, doesn't seem like an accident. It looks like counter-programming. Look over here, don't pay attention to that. Right. They had an idea what was coming and they didn't like it.
Jeremy Corbell, Immaculate Constellation, Congressional UFO Hearings, A Parade of Aliens, Weaponized episode number 77. So, this is, I like to say it when it's good. It's a classic Weaponized. This is a Tuesday, hour-long episode. Get your UFOs and aliens, your most recent Corbell clan UFO and aliens right here, folks. They didn't really, I don't think they have a guest at all. I don't think there's a guest. They're each other's guest. I thought it was hilarious at the beginning when Jeremy said he's just there for the alibi. That's like triple hilarious. Just like really high in hilarity, They cover everything. They don't do any kind of like bookmarks or anything. But yeah, they take their time here to kind of cover everything. The last 3 episodes of Weaponized have been Immaculate Constellation Part 1, 2, and 3 with Matthew Brown, their newest whistleblower, the newest ufology whistleblower, the man of the hour. Kind of like him. He doesn't seem to be a very slimy insider, government insider, top secret agent kind of guy at all. Lue Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, they kind of seem like super slimy, super insider, slimy insider government guys. And then you have like Grusch, who isn't super slimy, but he's a little slimy. Matthew Brown doesn't seem very slimy. He just seems like a guy. And he does seem like afraid. Like he seems afraid to kind of like get thrown in Spanish prison for the rest of his life or something. So they talk about all those things that they, basically kind of weren't talking about while they were covering the 3-part Matthew Brown, or releasing the 3-part Matthew Brown interview. So they get everything in there. Everyone was making a big deal about all the ufology celebrities going off to whatever, alien convention that they all went to last weekend. The big deal that was being made on, X all over the place was that, Lue Elizondo bailed on the congressional skiff with Grusch because he went to the alien convention. And all the ex-debunker dudes they were posting is like $43 a person to get in through the gate at whatever this was called. And they, and then you saw lots of coverage of it if you're paying attention on X, including the golf cart parades that were going on daily that had all the UFO celebs in it. And then parodies, like, of course, Chupacabra, amazing parodies, multiple parodies, but my favorite one had Elizondo and Tan Sheehan. And had a Danny Sheehan proxy with black hair and super tan. So that's fun, and they're saying we went to this alien thing and it was fun. Jeremy Corbell is making a big deal that it's his second time and it was so fun last time that when George asked him to go this time he had to go. And this is all kind of like, and then they make sure to tell you kind of before and after that. Watch the Lue Elizondo disclosure documentary that's coming out soon, someday, one day, which I think I saw actually had like a hard release date recently, June something, maybe June 1st, which is days from now. Maybe it was like June 23rd, which is many days from now. But I think I saw a June release date for that. Maybe not. But it seemed like it was, we've been talking about it for like 6 months without an actual release date. And they had their, premiere months ago now. So, even days ago, X was talking shit about, is this ever going to happen? Or are these UFO celebrities just going to talk about it forever? So I think it is actually coming out next month, like for real. So they talk about that, of course. What else do they talk about? They talk about the UFO hearings. They talk about all parts of the UFO hearings. Eric Davis talking about aliens. That's pretty much all he talked about, besides Lue Elizondo holding up his picture that nobody liked and he got a lot of pushback for. And even Jeremy takes like some time here, and I was going to cut it out, but it's like I wasn't even going to pay attention to most Elizondo stuff because it just seems like it was going to be more of this kind of coverage, basically like, he fucked up and he's sad and he's sorry. But that's what Jeremy says. He says, I know him really well personally. He's kind of actually pretty torn up about this whole mess, and he's really sorry. And the rumors of him trying to like basically take a break because of it. All I have to say about that is that he's my friend, and I trust him and believe him. And even your friends will make mistakes, and they'll be genuine mistakes, and etc. So Jeremy Corbell's doing the kind of flagship, apology sort of statement, acknowledging that this was a problem and it sucked. And even though he kind of tries to smooth it out, he says, look, Lue's sorry. And he's sorry for Lue, and he hopes that Lue, comes back from this stronger than ever, brother. So we ended up going over it anyways, but it's interesting because I was talking shit, basically. I'm sure that nobody was addressing it inside the clan. The Corbell people, and also Ross Coulthart, who really hasn't addressed it. I mean, he addressed it last week by saying, yeah, it happened. But at least on Twitter, on X this week, there's been a lot of clips of Congressman Burleson saying that, Lue Elizondo made a mistake and he's taking a break from the whole thing, including going to shifts, etc. While this problem kind of, blows over. And so that's been some good ufology drama as far as X goes. So I can obviously Weaponized and Jeremy Corbell as the leader of the Corbell clan is kind of addressing it head on here in this episode 77 video where they talk about the UFO hearings. And when he throws a George Knapp on almost everything in this, he says, "Yep." Like he's doing more than just saying "yep" right there. But like he would say, "I told you so." Basically. What else did they cover? So Parade of Aliens, yeah, that's them going to their alien con. Congressional hearings, Immaculate Constellation. Mostly when they're covering Immaculate Constellation, they're saying they do this dual coverage thing where they've covered AARO releasing UAP videos. And one of the UAP videos that AARO released was a 17-minute video of the jellyfish UFO, jellyfish UAP video that Weaponized and Corbell dropped a year ago, 2 years ago. And when they dropped it 2 years ago, a year ago, they said, well, there was a lot more video that they saw, but they only have this little piece that they're allowed to get out because of how they got it. Right? So they wouldn't give away who they got it from, basically, and how they got it. And so what they're saying in here is like, well, first off, there's Immaculate Constellation. We think that you guys should watch it, and you should watch all 3 parts. Don't just watch the first part. Don't just watch the third part. Like, watch all 3 parts and try and watch them all 3 together. But AARO is trying to, like, sidewinder us by releasing these UAP videos 3 minutes after we release our live broadcast of our newest episodes of Weaponized, which happened to be the Immaculate Constellation interviews with Matthew Brown, the newest whistleblower. So they're saying that AARO is doing the release at the same time as a direct attack on them to try and obfuscate and pull away viewers and etc. But then there's also more in there because he says, well, they released a 17-minute video of the of the jellyfish UAP, which he's been saying now for 2 years. Well, there's 17 minutes of the jellyfish UAP being underwater, so they're trying to kind of obfuscate that part also. And they also didn't release the 1 hour video, the over 1 hour video, or any of the video where the thing's underwater. So they're saying there's a series of things that AARO is doing basically to kind of directly obfuscate and attack the message, counter message, what Weaponized and George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are doing, which is to, you know, publish and highlight and talk about what the Immaculate Constellation program and Immaculate Constellation whistleblower is talking about. And then, you know, they released other UAP videos too, but they were releasing them at the same time as Weaponized, high noon on Tuesday, which is a good day to put out UFO UAP content on whatever platform you're doing. Like Tuesday is like a really good day. So anyways, that's what the Immaculate Constellation portion of the video is 1, we did Immaculate Constellation. It's really awesome. Go watch it. Watch all 3 parts. And 2, AARO's trying to fuck with us. There's a good part in here that's not mentioned here. I guess that's part of the congressional UFO hearings, is that Grusch is back in town. And he hasn't released his op-ed. He hasn't done all this stuff. They said that he was kind of bailing on the skiff, but it turns out everyone else bailed on the skiff. So maybe there was Grusch involved in a skiff. But if he wasn't involved in a skiff, he was involved in being all these, you know, non-public UFO hearings where the Congress people got to ask questions of folks while David Grusch was kind of there staring them down. So that does kind of sound exciting. There was some kind of murmurs about that, but then pretty much the only coverage I've seen of that exact kind of little slice is Weaponized here and probably vetted we'll see later. So good Weaponized, no guests, just them kind of going over, you know, the last 3 weeks. Taking some shots at AARO, right? Big jabs, big front kicks, just flapping them over there in AARO's direction. Since, you know, at least from their perspective, they think that they're being targeted directly by AARO. Disinformation, obfuscation campaign, which they might be. It's kind of weird. Like, if you know anything about ufology and X and YouTube, you know that Weaponized comes out at high noon on Tuesday.
You notice that all the attention, or let's say most of the attention, is focused on contemporary military insiders like David Grusch or Lue Elizondo, who have made such claims. It's valid, it's perfectly valid, but there are some unfortunate side effects to it. Mainly, as I say, it tends to push aside 50 years worth of private research. Just pushes it all aside. And one problem is that by ignoring all this previous work, it's a lot easier for casual skeptics to just dismiss claims by contemporary military people as either unfounded or at worst as some kind of disinformation or an op. And it's a strange place to see all of this. You have people becoming skeptical about crash retrievals because they have a natural, and let's be honest, healthy skepticism regarding the military-industrial complex. We all do. And there's knowledge, too, that the U.S. government does engage in all kinds of false flags and psyops. We all know this. By now, that should be old news. So the tendency, this is kind of strange to me, again, of people whose skepticism of the government just a few decades ago would have made them more open to UFOs and to crash retrievals, those same people now sometimes go the other way, and due to their distrust of the military and of the government, now they are often just as inclined to doubt UFOs and crash retrievals because it's coming from someone who is associated with the government.
Richard Dolan, before the whistleblowers, the foundation of UFO crash retrieval research. So this is, it's good stuff. It's classic ufology from Richard Dolan. It starts off with, parts that I clipped, but it's kind of a grumpy intro. More grumpy than usual from Richard Dolan, who's usually kind of completely go along to get along. 100%. He doesn't mention anyone by name. I mean, he does mention David Grusch and Lue Elizondo, but not really in a negative way. But he does say that, everyone else out there who's focusing on whistleblowers and, really kind of maybe even being distracted sort of by whistleblowers and the focus on whistleblowers, that they're kind of doing disservice to ufology and to the history and legacy of ufology by not mentioning or including some good old studying into UFO crash retrieval research, which is, just happens to be what Richard Dolan is an expert in and has written uncountable number of books. He probably could tell you how many books. It's like 17 or way more. I don't know. So anyways, he says, he's a little irritated with people being so focused on the more recent modern whistleblowers, which is something I say all the time. I say it a lot quicker than his intro, which at first I was going to say is like a 50-minute video where he's kind of bitching about whistleblowers, but it's not. He only bitches about them for a little tiny bit at the very beginning. But I say it, on X all the time. I say, well, basically David Grusch, what he's told us, what we've heard that he's told anyone, his public comments, his publicly available comments in his podcast interviews and everything else, congressional hearing comments. So all the things that David Grusch has said that we've actually heard him say, that we know that he said, has been like a Richard Dolan episode. Like you could get pretty much every word that he said ever about ufology from one Richard Dolan episode. Like maybe it would take more than one, maybe. But there's probably one out there. There's this one, or there's the one before this one, or there's a couple other summaries where you could just take Richard Dolan and play that for the same amount of time as David Grusch is talking, and you would get the same exact info. So David Grusch is kind of regurgitating like well-documented ufology that's been being discussed. It's been well discussed by people like Richard Dolan, George Knapp, you name them, for decades, for many, many, many decades. Richard Dolan's been doing this for like 4, 5, 6 decades now. Ufology's been going on for 8, 9 decades now, 10 decades now. So it's well discussed, it's well documented. We haven't actually received anything new out of David Grusch. We haven't actually received anything new out of Elizondo either, but he doesn't just regurgitate ufology. He talks in parables for some reason and tells you what he's saying is got to be in that parable form because he's still got his clearances. He's still in with the government. He's still planning to work for the government if he can. He's still doing his job for the government. You'll see quotes of him saying. So, I'm one of the people that Richard Dolan describes at some point in here that says, well, there was people that were so, and is people that are so discontent with the story they've received from the government, the military, and the cover-up people that they now suspect everyone who's ever been involved in or with the government or military is to be part of, either willingly or unwittingly, part of the cover-up. And that's me. As I say, well, I don't even David Grusch, but Elizondo, and we can name them all, right? They're probably working for the conspiracy, even at a most basic kind of ignorant level where they're trying to be gatekeepers because they think that will allow them to be part of the controlled disclosure. But it's probably not a little worse than that. It's probably much worse than that, probably. And so, that's what Richard Dolan is saying. He's saying there's two camps of people. There's the people in ufology who've kind of latched on to these government insider whistleblowers and made them their case, right? That's what they do all day, every day in ufology is make the case of these government insiders. And then there's kind of another majority crowd that completely doesn't entirely disbelieve all the things that are being talked about, but they don't believe anything coming out of those guys' mouth. Those guys as being the Elizondos and the Grushes and the Mellons and maybe even now the Matthew Browns. And so, Richard Dolan bitches about all that for a little bit and then says, okay, so let's go back to the beginning. And then he gives you Roswell. And it's not just Roswell, he's giving you like really particular people that covered Roswell afterwards that were ufologists that looked into all the different parts and found the witnesses and found the pieces of crash material that were not retrieved. And, you could definitely listen to thousands of hours of Roswell easily. And this is only 50 minutes of Roswell. And he's not doing all little pieces of Roswell. He's really doing the investigation of Roswell. Which, if you don't know, is kind of how a lot of people, including Richard Dolan, get into ufology. 5 decades ago, he decides he's going to look into Roswell and look into ufology and figure out if it's nonsense or not, and got stuck. Thought it was nonsense and got stuck for 5 decades documenting and figuring out that he doesn't think it is nonsense, actually. The Richard Dolan Show.